organizing meeting on June 28th. My name is Hal Ginsberg. I'm the East Region Coordinator, and I'm always excited to be welcoming folks. So when you join us, please put your name and where you're calling from in the chat, and I'll be delighted to give you a shout out. We've got an awesome lineup tonight, and I'll tell you what, I'm really excited to hear from and see and meet India Walton. She is leading in the mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. What an exciting situation that is. So we're really looking forward to talking to India Walton. Our focus, though, is tackling the climate crisis by ending fossil fuel subsidies. We'll be talking with two leaders on this critical issue, Michigan Congressman Andy Levin and Michelle Deatrick. She is chair of the DNC's Environment and Climate Crisis Council. I mentioned New York, but we'll also be getting a New York City election update from our endorsed candidate in the comptroller's race, Brad Lander, and he is projected to win that race. Also, activist Amy Vilela, a Nevadan, she was featured in the film Knock Down the House, and that's on building progressive power in the Silver State. Remember, we can put together great calls like this because of the support of you, our members. If you aren't already a member of Our Revolution, please consider joining for just $5 a month. You pay a little more if you can afford it. We'd love to take it. But hey, $5 a month, you get a personalized 2021 Movement Builder membership card. You can sign up at the link in the chat. That's ourrev.us/2021 member. And if you're on the phone, just press *3 and an operator will take your question. All right, so let's see. Who do we have on the call? We got a lot of folks already. Doc Kiki. Hey, Kiki from Ohio. She is on the Nina Call Team Mod Squad. Go, Senator Nina Turner. We've got Josh in Ashland, Wisconsin. We've got Dick Haas in Pontiac, Illinois. I've heard of Pontiac, Michigan. I know there's a Pontiac, Illinois as well. Jesus in El Paso. Drew Martin from Palm Beach. And Deb in Vermont. Deb Robinson. Hello from Vermont. I know the names will keep rolling in. Keep putting them down there. We've got Ken in Silver Spring. I spoke to you today. Great talking to you, Ken. Doc in Los Angeles, the unceded territory of the Tongva people. I did not know the Tongva people lived in Los Angeles. Heidi in Virginia Beach. Michelle is greeted by Lauren. So hi, Michelle. Zahara in Gainesville, Florida. So you can see we've got a very, very intra-national call. Callers from all over these United States. I'll bet we've got some people overseas as well, or north or south of the border. Great to see my friend Sally in Silver Spring, Peg in New Jersey. Dorothy and Rob are, I don't know where you guys are, it doesn't seem. Just gave to Nina. I don't know that that means, though, that you're in the Buckeye State. So we've got just a little less than a minute before I'm going to turn this call over to our great hosts, Mike and Marissa. We are just going to get going in just a little bit of time. Again, keep putting your names in there. And hey, let me give one more push for you too. If you are not a movement builder, to become one, that's at ourrev.us/2021 member. And if you're on the phone, press *3. We do appreciate all of you so much. Martha with SEIU 1021 in the beautiful city by the bay, San Francisco. Susan in Detroit, my good friend Benito in DC, Pat in Texas, Joan in DeKalb, Illinois. And that takes us right to 8:30. So let me turn our call right over to my field supervisor, our Revolution's national supervisor across the field. That is Mike Olis. Take it away, Mike.
Hey, Hal, thanks for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It is awesome to be with you. We are halfway through 2021, and Our Revolution, we're doing pretty good. And we have a big election coming up in August with Nina Turner, and things are just going to get busier and busier. So it is awesome to be with everybody tonight as we head into the midpoint for the year. Again, please keep communicating in the chat room. Let us know how you're doing, what's going on, how you can get involved. We want to make sure Our chat room is rocking and rolling tonight. And if you're joining us on Zoom, on Facebook, on Twitter, if you're on the telephone right now, hit *3 to leave comments. We have a great telephone town hall service. So we have thousands of people joining us on the phones, and hundreds of people in Zoom and hundreds of people on social media. So that's how we build our audience and build our crowd for a Monday night call. Every Monday night, we do this at our Revolution. And I want to say good evening again, and want to say that, our co-host Marissa Marmila will be joining us shortly. So a lot going on in this call tonight. And as we get going, want to just remind everybody what our revolution is about and what we're doing to make real progressive change in this country. So number one, our 5-point plan to win is very simple. We got to go out and we got to organize progressive powerhouses. We got to become the moral center of our communities at the city level, at the state level, at the national level. When people think about winning healthcare, fighting the climate crisis, just standing up for everyday people, they think about our revolution. We're organizing progressive powerhouses across the country and at all levels of government. Number two, we're going out and we're holding politicians accountable, whether it's your mayor, your city councilor, your president, your senator, it doesn't matter. Our revolution and our members are out in the streets fighting to make sure that our people do the right things once they get to office and they live up to the promises they make. Number three, we're going to elect progressive champions to office. We just talked about Nina quite a bit. August 3rd, Nina Turner going to send her to Congress. But tonight, we're going to hear from Brad Lander. We're going to hear from India Walton, who just are on the verge of winning major races in New York City and New York State. But we're going to elect progressive champions up and down the ballot. We're going to fight for progressive public policy, for healthcare, climate, jobs, all that. And we're going to build a progressive Democratic Party together and make sure the Democratic Party is progressive. That is what we do together at our revolution. And just recently, we surveyed our members and took what are our demands? What are we fighting for at our revolution? What is most important to our members? And this list is, what's in the news and what we're fighting for lines up. Voting rights. We can't have a functioning country if we don't have a democracy. We're going to fight for health care for everybody, Medicare for all, expansion of Medicare, health care for everybody, climate change. Tonight's call is climate change focused, tax the rich so we can get this stuff done, and then the fight for good jobs. So that's our top 5 priorities at our revolution. And now I want to kick it over to my co-host over in Maryland. Marissa, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. So like what Mike was mentioning, this call, we're going to talk about ending fossil fuel handouts. And that's part of the reason why we launched a week of action to end fossil fuel handouts. Yesterday, we kicked it off with a virtual town hall featuring Representatives Ro Khanna and Andy Levin, who will be joining us later. And it was co-hosted by the DNC Environment and Climate Council Crisis Council and other Democratic Party groups. And tonight, for the first half of our call, we're going to focus on ending fossil fuel subsidies. Representative Levin will tell us about what needs to happen to get Congress to take action. And Michelle Deatrick, the chair of the DNC's Environment and Climate Council Crisis and the leader in Our Revolution Michigan, will join us to talk about what progressives in the Democratic Party are doing to push for an end to fossil fuel subsidies. Then later tonight, we're going to hear, again, a New York City election update from our endorsed candidate, Brad Lander, who is leading in the New York City Comptroller's race. And later, we'll hear from India Walton, who won the Democratic primary for mayor of Buffalo, New York. And lastly, we'll hear from activist Amy Vilela, who is featured in the film Knock Down the House on building progressive power in Nevada. And if you have a question for our speakers and you're on the phones, you can press *3. An operator will take your questions. We'll try to get to them while we're talking to our speakers. If you're joining us on social media, feel free to leave a comment with your questions for our speakers, and we'll try to get to those. And if you are on Zoom, as always, you can use the Q&A, as you start thinking of stuff, and feel free to leave questions and comments, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Marissa. And wanted to spend a couple minutes just talking about the road ahead, especially when it comes to the fight to defend our democracy. Just this past week, this past week was dedicated towards the For the People Act. Our movement was able to get a majority of senators, 50+1, with Kamala Harris's vote to support most of the For the People Act, and it was filibustered as expected. So we still have the filibuster in place, and our revolution in this past couple days has risen to the occasion to call for the end of the filibuster and make real change happen. And our executive director, Joseph Varghese, was featured on CNN this week. He called the defeat of this legislation not by defeat by votes, but defeat by the filibuster, a call to action to mount a nationwide mobilization to win on the filibuster and voting rights. So our members are keeping the pressure on President Biden to be more vocal on this issue. And we have two U.S. Democrat senators who, the Republicans line up, as a perfect voting bloc. We have two Democrat U.S. senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema, who've not yet committed to ending the filibuster. So we need some discipline in our party, and we need Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to step up and end the filibuster. And what I love about this upcoming slide, Marissa, is that our movement in Arizona, we're part of this coalition called End the Filibuster Arizona Coalition. And our coalition showed up huge in Phoenix last week. This is in front of Kyrsten Sinema's Phoenix office. Hundreds of people showed up. The police and security weren't too happy about it. They closed the building down, basically locked the doors up, and our movement said loud and clear, F off filibuster, based on some of the aesthetics that Kyrsten Sinema brings to the table. Our group helped lead this protest. There was 12 people who got arrested in Arizona that day. And just today I saw on the 52nd anniversary of Stonewall, LGBTQ activists in Phoenix were in front of the same office protesting for Kyrsten Sinema to end the filibuster. So an awesome movement has sprouted in Arizona, and our revolution is part of it, and just love what our group is doing there. And Marissa, you were in DC, you're in DC, but same day as we're protesting in Arizona and DC, major action happening.
Yes, we were. So we were in DC on last Tuesday. Tuesday was a busy day for us, where the Senate was holding a hearing on DC statehood, and our revolution members, along with myself, you see me in the photo there, were rallying outside the U.S. Capitol for voting rights and to end taxation without representation on behalf of the over 700,000 residents of the District of Columbia who have no real voice in Congress. And our fight for voting rights, will continue this summer. Congress will be in recess next month. And senators will be back in their states hearing from constituents. And, it's a big reason why we need to hold them accountable on the ground in their states and as well as in DC. And our revolution will be mobilizing our members and supporters across the country in support of passing the For the People Act. And we've partnered with Deadline for Democracy, a coalition of nearly 100 organizations that are demanding that Congress pass the For the People Act by August. There are actions planned across the country in the next few weeks, so you can find an event near you by clicking the link that's in the chat or in the comments if you're watching us on social media, or you can visit deadlinefordemocracy.org. Back to you, Mike.
And let's go up the road from DC to New York City. And we'll go a little bit further up the road over to Buffalo. But in New York City, also last Tuesday's election, strong results for the progressive movement. Our revolution endorsed a score of candidates across the state, especially in New York City. In the top 3 citywide races, our revolution did very strong. Our candidates and those candidates did strong. 2 are in the lead. And Maya Wiley for mayor is just is in shouting distance. And this is a ranked choice voting, so this is the first time it's been done in New York City, and we'll know more, I think tomorrow, about second round and third round results maybe. But our members worked very hard during this election season in New York. We made over 268,000 voter contacts. We called, we texted, we emailed, we held events. We did what we could as a progressive movement as part of our Bernie our Bernie style organizing to make a difference in that race. And you'll hear from Brad Lander tonight, who went from being term limited on the city council, faced a very tough race for comptroller of the city of New York. He is in the lead right now, and I think tomorrow we'll hear more about round 2 results for ranked choice voting. So things are looking strong for Brad, and we'll hear from him in just a second. And then want to go up to Buffalo, New York. I know we're joined here tonight with India Walton, our endorsed candidate. India Walton, she pulled off a stunning upset. She beat a 4-term incumbent, a Cuomo ally, in the Democratic primary for mayor. She won by 2,000 votes as an underdog candidate. So just an awesome campaign, an awesome victory. She's likely to become the city's first female mayor and the first socialist to lead the American city since 1981, when Bernie Sanders was elected the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. I want to do a little dad joke here, but whatever happened to that Bernie guy? Please laugh. But we will hear directly from India here in just a few minutes.
And as you know, and as you can hear, our Revolution members are doing some great work across the country. We're trying to elect progressives up and down the ballot. And because our members are doing such great work, you know, this can only happen with your support. We need those tools to have phone banks and text and email. And because we don't take any corporate money, we rely on our sustaining members to support our work. The average gift is about $17. So if you're already a movement builder, thank you so much. And if not, if you can give, you know, $1, $5, whatever you can afford. Some people are even doing like $100 or more, which is awesome if you can. You can sign up at the link in the chat or press *3 if you're calling in, and an operator will take your information. So turning things over, I'm going to introduce our first guest in a moment. The climate emergency is here, and yet Congress continues to give fossil fuel companies over $15 billion a year in handouts, which means our tax dollars are funding the climate crisis and lining the pockets of corporate polluters. And these subsidies need to end. And with President Biden's infrastructure package, we have a real opportunity to get that done. And our first guest tonight, Congressman Andy Levin of Michigan, was one of our featured guests yesterday in our virtual town hall, who kicked off where we kicked off our week of action to end fossil fuel handouts. Congressman, Michigan and your district near Detroit has suffered major flash flood disaster. Portland reached 115 degrees today, and it was the hottest day in at least 1,000 years in the Pacific Northwest. And there's a lot we can do to avoid the climate disaster, but one of the most common sense things we can do is to stop giving taxpayer dollars to fossil fuel projects. So how are things back in Macomb County today? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the fight to end fossil fuel subsidies?
Hey, Marissa. I assume you can hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great, loud and clear.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I love our revolution. I love doing stuff with y'all every time. Dude, my basement flooded. It's real. It's horrible. I've lived in that house for 15, 16 years. We have never seen that amount of rain in that short a period of time. And, you know, climate change, we've known since the 80s it was coming, but it is here. I mean, last few years, heavy rain events in the Midwest, like the worst 1% of all storms, dropped 31% more precipitation in the Midwest than over the last 50 years. Heat waves have tripled in the Midwest compared to the long-term average. And in agriculture, you know, we're getting some longer growing seasons, but extreme weather events have actually decreased agricultural productivity. And we're having more forest fires. The forest ecosystem is super strained, and we've got work to do. Yeah, more people are acknowledging that climate change is happening, but in my district, only 55% of people believed it's caused by human activities. So we've got a long way to go to educate and act, and we don't have any time. I mean, we have to change everything about the way we live on this planet, the way we make things, the buildings we live in and work in, everything about transportation, everything about agriculture and land use, and we've got to do it all right now. I say it's a super exciting opportunity to transform our economy, tackle systemic racism, tackle long-term structures of income and wealth inequality, create a ton of union jobs, high-paying jobs, and put all the great stuff we have to do in frontline and vulnerable communities so people have real economic opportunity out of this. But one thing we have to do, as you said, is stop subsidizing the fuels and the pollution that is causing climate change in the first place. So I'm a happy and proud co-sponsor of my sister Representative Ilhan Omar's bill, which is HR 2102, the End Polluter Welfare Act, which would close tax loopholes and eliminate federal subsidies for the oil, gas, and coal industries. And the bill is revolutionary with provisions to end carbon capture tax credits and increase corporate liability for oil spills, as well as cutting funding for oil and gas R&D. So it goes beyond, simple ideas about, ending subsidies. And there's other bills that do eliminate some of the provisions in the tax codes that are favorable to the oil and gas industry, but it doesn't include as broad a sweep as Representative Omar's bill. So that's the one I'm really pushing. And I want it in the infrastructure package, y'all. I want it in the reconciliation package. And some say, well, it's too much of a legislative push to be in budget reconciliation. But, I'm fed up with that. I mean, I said to the president and the vice president, don't tell me $15 an hour doesn't fit in budget reconciliation. You want to talk about something that have a big impact on our budget? How about letting everybody make $15 an hour? That would reduce the need for a lot of different social programs hugely, and make the companies pay their workers instead of, having people need so much help from social programs. So I think we've got to do this. We've got to tackle it right now, Marissa, and I am ready to go.
Great. Yeah, we're excited. And we're out there supporting this legislation. And Congressman, can you tell us a little bit about what our activists can do to help and how we can, get out there and make sure that we can let other folks, like you said, 50% of the folks in your district don't understand, everything about the climate change, and what we can do to help spread that information out there.
Absolutely. Well, so first of all, it really does matter when you call us, when you email us, when you write us letters. Write your congressperson, write other congresspeople and senators. The more personal, the better. Campaigns are cool. And like if Our Revolution's running a big campaign and it said, touch this thing to send in your email, that's really good. But it's even more powerful if you do it, also send personalized stuff. But I want to tell you all something. We need to hit the street. We need to organize, and we need get creative. Start where you are as a person, right? If you're into the transformation to non-animal proteins, have an eat-in of of your own whatever tofu or your Impossible Burgers or whatever you're into. If you're into like I drive a Chevy Bolt. Get a whole bunch of Bolt drivers together and go drive around, some refinery. Take direct action and be joyous about it. Be creative. Don't think what you're doing doesn't matter. The more theatrical, creative, fun your idea is, the more likely you'll get media coverage, the more it'll take off on social media. So I think, really, Marissa, I don't really believe in the great person theory of history. So I'm a congressperson, that's cool, but I think that if you really look at American history and world history, change happens when people get together and organize to demand it. And so I'm amazed by the progress we're making in a lot of areas, but it's because of the organizing. Let me just give you one other thing. Like, I'm an original co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, Marissa. And oh my God, people say that's impractical or that's too much. You know what? Every time one of my utilities, the big investor-owned utilities in Michigan, They call me up. The CEO calls me up and say, Congressman Levin, we've accelerated our timeline. Now it's going to be 2050. And now it's going to be 2040. And I just laugh, Marissa, because I say, don't tell me the GND isn't effective. You're proving it's effective right now because we are forcing you to accelerate your timelines, and we're not going to stop until we have a very rapid transition to a beautiful clean energy economy with lots of union jobs for everybody and great training for anybody who needs it to get these jobs. So I'm really excited about this opportunity, but it's a huge fight and depends on us organizing in the neighborhoods, in the streets, and, all over our cities and our lands.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Congressman. As you said, that, some creative stuff is what gets attention. We are going to be doing an action tomorrow on Capitol Hill, and we're going to have a giant dinosaur. So hopefully you'll get a chance to see it.
Love it.
But yeah. So if you all look at the screen now, you can see our giant dinosaur eating money, our fossil fuel. So if you are in, so thank you for joining us. I'm just going to do a quick plug for our event tomorrow if there's anything else you want to say, but thank you so much. And I think you did great.
Thank you, Marissa. No, I look forward to seeing your dinosaur tomorrow. I didn't even know about that. Friends, that was not a setup. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, take it easy, everybody. Your eyes on.
Thank you. So if you are in the DC area tomorrow, you can join our revolution, our climate allies like Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, Sierra Club, as we rally in DC to push Congress to end fossil fuel subsidies. We'll be on the Hill with Congressman Ro Khanna and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, along with a few others. And like I said before, a giant dinosaur that will eat taxpayer dollars. But if you can't join us on Capitol Hill, you can also take an action tomorrow by joining our phone bank. We'll be hitting the phones from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern to tell members of Congress to end polluter welfare and to include fossil fuel subsidies in the next infrastructure bill. You can RSVP for both of these events and the links in the chat. And if you're on the phone, you can press *3 and you can get connected to an operator who'll take down your information. And so next up, I'm going to kick it to Mike to introduce our next guest.
Thanks, Marissa. Wish I could be in DC with the dinosaur tomorrow, but we're watching from afar and excited to see tomorrow's really, really important action. Last Tuesday, my Twitter feed and Facebook feed got dominated by one name. One name kept popping up Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. That name is India Walton. India Walton was just elected, just won the Democratic primary for the mayorship of Buffalo, New York, and she's going to join us here in just 1 second. Born and raised on Buffalo's east side, India Walton just defeated a 4-time incumbent, Byron Brown, to win that primary. Mayor Brown, soon to be former Mayor Brown's been a bit of a sore loser and not conceding. But when it's all said and done, India Walton is going to be the next mayor of the second largest city in New York, Buffalo, New York. And my video is not being shared, but I'm going to say hello to India Walton. Thank you for joining us tonight. And how are you feeling?
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I feel great. I am so proud of our team here in Buffalo. I am so proud of all of the outpouring of support that we got from all folks all from across the city, the state, and the country. And I'm excited to bring truly progressive politics into Buffalo and Western New York.
Great. And just reading your biography and just reading all the news stories last week, a lot sticks out from your personal journey. But as somebody who worked for 1199 in Ohio and Pennsylvania, it's always awesome to see a 1199er get elected to office, let alone mayor. And so as an organizer, as an activist, India, what kind of perspective did that bring, did that allow you to have during this very tough race for mayor, taking on the machine and the establishment and the powers that be in state politics?
Being an organizer allows me to have the mind frame that anything is possible. And I will keep echoing the words of Bernie Sanders. The way to be organized money is with organized people. And we set out to do just that. We knew that to be a 4-term, heavily entrenched Democrat, that we were going to need the assistance of people from outside of our direct geographic area. And because I had spent many years building coalitions from across the state and country, we knew exactly who to reach out to and who to call to get the help that we needed. So we mobilized our base and knocked on doors and did it the good old fashioned way, pounded the pavement, made phone calls and text bank. And this is where we are. It's not quite over yet. He announced today that he is going to launch a write-in campaign that is going to be fueled by right-wing corporate interests and large developers. And we know that when we continue to organize, we will continue to win.
Absolutely. That's our slogan at our revolution. When we organize, we win. And that's exactly what you and your team was able to make happen on Tuesday. There's a quote that I read that says that those who are closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, and I think that's a very powerful quote. And tell us a little bit about Buffalo, the problems that the city is facing, and as mayor, what you can do in your position and the activist movement in Buffalo and across the state and country can do to help.
Buffalo is a blue-collar working-class city, and like many other West Belt cities, with the decline of industry, we just saw a population loss, decreased job creation, and the influx in development has caused a lot of people to feel the negative impacts of neighborhood change. I am a fighter for working class people. We all want the same things. Buffalo is facing the same challenges as some of our colleagues in larger cities. We want affordable housing. We want healthcare for all. We want a quality education for our children. We want to reimagine public safety. And that is what my administration plans to do. I think that Buffalo is unique in that despite the fact that we are a mostly Democrat city, we tend to lean more conservative. So this is not only a big win for our national movement, but our movement locally, right? We've had small pockets of progressive activity that hasn't gotten a lot of traction because the dominant political environment precludes a lot of progressive change that some of our activists have been fighting for. And now we have a champion and a partner in government that is going to see a lot of these things come to fruition. So I am looking forward to tackling the challenge of concentrated poverty and disadvantage, uplifting the voices of those who have not been heard and been seen, and really co-governing and bringing some excitement back into local and municipal government.
And future mayor, I got a question here. And you hit on a little bit earlier about the question says centrists. Centrists are coming after Nina Turner in Ohio. They're coming after. They're going to come after you. The mayor is not going to back down. But they're not really centrists, right? These are corporate funded, big dollar, bad faith actors, right? How can we make sure that we get you across the finish line? And how can we help going forward so that when this silly writing campaign happens, it's no big deal because you blow them out of the water here in November?
We are taking this writing campaign very serious. There have already been efforts to defame my character, to seed fear in local voters and residents by using terms like radical socialist, right? And saying that I'm going to defund the police. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fully fund our community and bring resources to the ground level that we know naturally reduces crime. What I'm going to do is prioritize workers and people who've been long forgotten. And because I'm not taking any money from corporations or the real estate lobby or large developers, it's important that people give what they can to the campaign. And we're also going to need boots on the ground. We cannot underestimate the power of what is being mounted against us. And now is the time that we are calling for all the help we can get, all hands on deck. If you can volunteer, if you can donate, visit our website at www.indiawalton.com, and please make your contribution or sign up to volunteer today. It doesn't matter where you live. We're phone banking from all over the country, and it doesn't matter how much you can or cannot give. No amount is too small, but the max for the general is $7,300 and some odd dollars. So if you have that, feel free to share too. But we're taking this all the way till November, and I believe that, again, we will organize and we will win.
And just one last question tonight is about your experience as a public school nurse. As somebody who's a nurse, who's in the public schools, how does that also, as an organizer, then also as a nurse and as a, in the public schools, what do you see, again, that, how you can make a difference, with a progressive mayor and a mobilized city like Buffalo?
I love to have the opportunity to talk about my experience as a school nurse, because that is really what began my trajectory into organizing. Children were coming into the nurse's office, not because they were sick, but because they were hungry. They were tired. There was a group of sisters. It was 3 of them, young women, and they had lice. So it was a Tuesday. I called mom and I said, it's okay. Just come pick them up, shampoo them real good. I'll check them again tomorrow and they'll be back to school. And she said, well, they won't be able to come back until Monday because I don't get paid until Friday and I can't afford the shampoo. So we're looking at 3 little girls who would have missed 3 days of school just because their parent wasn't able to afford a $5 bottle of shampoo. And that is the reason why I knew I needed to work on policy. I needed to work on a larger scale. And when I say the people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, it's just that, right? Because I grew up poor and working class, because I've had many challenges, I know also how to solve them and how to be an empathetic and transparent leader that is going to be compassionate to the needs of people who are just like me, frankly.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, India. I'm a father of 3 girls. We had a big lice outbreak earlier this year. It was pretty rough. And thank you to you and all the school nurses who keep our kids as healthy as possible and sometimes get elected mayor. So cannot wait to keep working with you and have our movement. We have 5,000 members in Buffalo who will read our emails and are engaged. So, they're a little bit online. We're trying to get them offline and have them really get out there and fight with you. So thank you so much, India, tonight.
I'm looking forward to working together, and thank you.
Thank you for joining us on short notice. So that is India Walton, who is not excited that our movement can go out and organize and sometimes beat the hell out of the establishment. So thank you so much, India, for joining us. And I think we want to go to our next guest. And, we're going to keep talking New York politics. So let's go from Buffalo down to the city and welcome Brad Lander to our call. Brad's been on a couple of our Revolution calls. And last week, Brad was in the lead to become the next New York City comptroller. Brad was term limited out as a city council member, and I think as the vice president of the city council. So Brad is moving on, hopefully, to the comptroller. And Brad Lander, welcome to the Our Revolution weekly call every Monday night.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be here. Thank you to Our Revolution for your incredible support in my race. And how amazing is India Walton? Very exciting to hear from her and see what's happening in Buffalo and across the state.
Awesome. And then, Brad, I just want to share a quick story. I met you at a conference a couple years ago in Dallas, Texas, where progressive public officials got together. And this was when Amazon was going out and trying to get cities to bid against each other to become the second headquarters. And you and my good friend here in Indianapolis, Jared Evans, and another city councilor, led the fight against Amazon, saying we don't want this race to the bottom. And a lot of people wouldn't touch that issue. And you were a leading voice on it. And now you are on the verge of becoming a citywide elected official in New York City. So thank you for your political bravery and your willingness to put your neck out there to take on the biggest corporation in the world. And but tell us, what is a comptroller, and why should we be excited that you're going to be the next comptroller of New York City?
It's a fair question. We actually had an ad with a bunch of comedians asking what was a comptroller. And my favorite was that Alana Glazer said, well, that's obviously a stroller with a computer built into it. Although Cal Penn said it was one of those Atari joysticks with the red button. A comptroller is New York City's chief accountability officer, our budget watchdog, and our chief fiscal officer. So you invest the city's pension funds, $250 billion on retirement savings for our retired teachers and nurses and firefighters. You take a look at the budget and say, are we spending it right? And of course, that means protecting from waste, fraud, and abuse, but it also means, are we spending it fairly to lift up all neighborhoods and not just reproducing patterns of inequality and racism? And it's our chief accountability officer. Are our agencies doing their job, paying people fairly, lifting up all of us? So that's what I really brought to the controller's race was, yes, let's make government agencies work better because we want big, bold government, but let's use an equity lens. Let's look out better for future crises. Let's lift up workers. All of those things can be tools of the controller's office.
And during our rehearsal, Brad, we were talking about fossil fuels and fossil fuel subsidies, and you mentioned that the comptroller is a powerful position when it comes to fighting climate change and making sound financial decisions. So could you tell us a little bit about, if you're able to bring this thing home, what you can do to fight climate change out of the comptroller's office?
Absolutely. So step one, 3 of New York City's 5 pension funds are already moving toward, and that's divestment from fossil fuels. We know it is time to divest our resources from fossil fuel extraction, and we need more pension funds all across the country to step up and start doing that. There's an amazing campaign called Stop the Money Pipeline, which is saying our investment funds, our banks, our insurance companies have to stop investing in, lending to, and insuring fossil fuel extraction. So that's step one, divest from fossil fuels. But then we can also push all the other kinds of companies that we invest in, whether they're tech companies or car companies or utilities, to make bold transformative change toward climate justice that can create good green jobs all across the country. But we know we have to move quicker. This burning hot week is proving it one more time. And then for New York City itself, there's a whole set of budget decisions that we're making every single day as we invest in new infrastructure. Is that creating green jobs? Is it climate resilient? And then let's bring a climate justice lens because, just like COVID hit Black and brown and immigrant communities the hardest, so will the climate crisis. So are we preparing for a more just and resilient city? That needs to be part of what we're looking at when we think about how we're investing in infrastructure and in our capital budget.
And Brad, we're talking New York City, right? So we're not talking millions of dollars, we're talking billions of dollars. Am I right?
Absolutely. So the pension funds, the pension funds of New York City are $250 billion, $250 billion. And divesting them from fossil fuels is about a $4 billion divestment. But what I think we can do is build this movement all across the country. Pension fund decisions get made one municipality, one state at a time. And by doing the kind of organizing that our revolution does, yes, look, we need a Green New Deal in Washington. We need the kind of leadership that we have from Bernie and Jamal Bowman and AOC, but we also need bold action in our cities and states. And that's what we can do when we organize locally.
And we've heard all about the progressive prosecutor movement, right? Over the last couple of years, these progressive prosecutors are changing the game of when it comes to how we think about criminal justice and who to prosecute and how to prosecute. But look, progressive prosecutors, progressive comptrollers, it makes total sense.
I'm excited for it. So if you guys know progressive comptrollers, treasurers, auditors in your municipality or your state, let's build a network. Mike, you and I, that thing that we met at was a national network of progressive local elected officials called Local Progress, over 1,000 across the country, building power together. We have to keep organizing on the outside because that's where change is built. Change is not built inside office, but boy, networking progressive local elected officials on the inside so we can try new things out. One thing I really want to try out here is something we're calling Public Solar NYC. Use New York City capital funds or infrastructure funds we get from Washington to build out rooftop solar that would be owned by the city itself. We think if we do that, we can expand it much faster than if each building owner has to finance it one at a time. We'll pay a rent to people to rent their roofs. The city will finance, install, and permit. We'll negotiate with Con Ed. We'll deal with battery storage. That also means the city can set the standards for the jobs and create good green jobs. So there's real bold opportunities if we step up and take them together.
And I've seen a question here in the chat room. Let me just scroll back down. So it's a technical question. It's from CB. So I don't know who CB is, but he or she asked, how much control do you have personally over the budget? And who will be fighting you on, like what's the resistance look like to this progressive comptroller who's going to shake things up?
Yeah, look, I mean, you guys know that change takes organizing and you have to build power together. There's no magic. The comptroller doesn't determine the budget. The budget is set by the mayor and the city council. The comptroller is a budget watchdog. So before it's passed, you call out what's working and not working. And then after it's passed, you make sure it's going where it's supposed to. You audit to make sure it gets there. Even on those pension funds that I mentioned, the comptroller is one trustee, but the union trustees on those funds and the mayor also have a vote. So the comptroller has a great set of tools, but those are only tools for change when they're used together with folks who are organizing on the outside. We call that either inside-outside organizing or collaborative governance or co-governance. The model for progressive governance is one of partnership with progressive unions, with community groups, with climate justice activists, with folks like Our Revolution. So I'm excited, knock on wood, where the ranked choice tabulations will be revealed tomorrow and we'll know a little more. But if I win this race, I really want it to continue to be with a model of co-governance with groups like Our Revolution. All these things are urgent and they're winnable, but they're done by organizing together, not just by getting folks elected and then crossing fingers that they'll do what we want on the inside.
And Brad, I just have one last question, and then we have a jam-packed call tonight. This has been an awesome call, Power of the Progressive Movement tonight. You can feel it in your bones. But in New York City, there's a narrative that progressives didn't have a great night on Tuesday. It's a false narrative, but you and Jumaane Williams, Jumaane just cleared the room. No need to go to the second ballot, right? So why did progressives coalesce behind your campaign and Jumaane's campaign? In ways that the media is really not talking about, but there is a governing progressive majority in New York City.
Absolutely. Jumaane Williams got 75% of the vote. And in addition, if anyone tries to tell you that there's a split between Black folks, working class Black folks and progressives, you show them Jumaane Williams, who has built a broad coalition of Black New Yorkers and progressive New Yorkers that garnered 75% of the vote in the Democratic primary. And in addition, a great set of council members won. Tiffany Caban, who a lot of you remember from her DA campaign, Alexa Aviles in Sunset Park, the person who's leading in the race to take my seat in the city council. I'm in a long line of straight cis white dudes who have represented the 39th district in Brooklyn. Shahana Hanif is a Bangladeshi Muslim young woman who's lived her entire life in this district and is now going to be leading a brownstone Brooklyn district that's 75% white, but is going to have this radical, amazing young woman of color leading it. So it was actually a good night for progressives throughout the city. Alvin Bragg won in Manhattan against a much more conservative prosecutor for the Democratic race there. What we tried to do in my campaign was put out a bold progressive vision. We laid out who we are. We had AOC and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Jumaane. And we said, we want government that can do big, bold things coming out of this pandemic, can lift up all neighborhoods, could be more ready for future crises than for this one, can genuinely protect and support workers. We also want government that can deliver on its promises. I think this gets back to like Bernie's time as mayor in Burlington. You got to show that you can deliver the goods. I was proud to have the New York Times endorsement, and they really cited a history of rolling up my sleeves to make government work better. And that really is, I think, the combination that I know India is going to fight hard for in Buffalo, that Jumaane and Tiffany and Shahana and Alexa and I are going to fight for in New York City. Big, bold change, government that delivers for people, and then government that can deliver on its promises, that tells the truth, where we really hold it to account and deliver for people. And that's the message that people were excited to hear across the city, and that I believe can help us keep building more of what we want.
Well, thank you, Brad. We're going to be watching tomorrow as the ranked choice voting comes in, and hoping that, tomorrow we'll have some clarity that, you're the next comptroller, most likely. So thank you so much for your time tonight, Brad. And I'm going to kick it back to Marissa. We've got two more.
Great to be with you, but I just want to say one more thank you. I know your call is packed, but Our Revolution and NIPAN, New York Progressive Action Network, and Bernie supporters were a huge part of our coalition. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's keep it up.
Awesome. Can't wait for next steps. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Mike. And again, folks, everyone who's joining us, if you can take a moment, please consider becoming a member of Our Revolution. Your membership is what allows us to help fight for progressive candidates, yet the tools we need like phone banking, texting, emailing, all of those things. And if you do become a member, you will get one of these cool membership cards sent directly to you in the mail. So you can sign up in the link in the chat. Next, I would like to welcome Michelle Deatrick, an Our Revolution leader and in Michigan and the chair of the DNC Environment and Climate Crisis Council. So Michelle, grassroots activists in the Democratic Party are overwhelmingly supporting ending fossil fuel subsidies. Can you tell us about your work to end the fossil fuel subsidies?
Absolutely. I think there helps if you turn your video on.
There we go.
So good to be here. And oh my gosh, what an amazing group of speakers, Andy, India, and Brad. Yeah, I am Michelle Deatrick. I'm the founder and chair of the first ever DNC Council on the Environment and Climate Crisis, created in 2019. We're going to celebrate our second birthday pretty soon, to be a loud and proud voice within the DNC and Democratic Party, demanding our leaders and the party take immediate urgent action at the scale needed to address the escalating climate crisis, protect our environment and uphold environmental justice, especially for those in the frontline communities, predominantly Black, Brown, and Indigenous, who are most harmed by the crisis. We've heard already this evening that it's not an option to ignore the crisis, or not an option to continue playing kick the can down the road, the usual political games. The crisis is here. I'm from Southeast Michigan, and we certainly have experienced this week, major flooding and storms, and it's all over the country. It's all over the world. And one of the most significant things we can do is to end fossil fuel subsidies. It'll have a real major impact. The fossil fuel industry is a sector in decline with sagging profits, bankruptcies, and the competitors, solar and wind, they provide energy at lower costs. So the question is, why are we propping up this really dangerous, reckless industry? Let's remove the subsidies, or better yet, shift them to renewable energy and growing good union jobs in the new economy. We can create a beautiful, beautiful, green, sustainable future together. So I'm really, really excited that Our Revolution invited me on the call tonight, because the ending fossil fuel subsidies is a top priority for our council. We're co-hosting with Our Revolution and some other groups an amazing live stream last night with congressional and progressive champions, Congressman Andy Levin and also Rokana, and the chair of the College Democrats Environmental Caucus, Paul Pressendew, and Our Revolution's Paco Fabian. So we had amazing engagement, really excited. We had almost 12,000 views already, and it keeps climbing as the video gets shared around. And on Friday, we sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Schumer that was signed by more than 25 Democratic Party, environmental youth, progressive and faith and rural organizations at the national, state, and local levels, urging our congressional leadership to bring legislation to the floor to end these subsidies. And we're joining with our allies all this week and going forward in actions, including the wonderful Our Revolution rally tomorrow that is so important with the dinosaur, and I plan to be there. So there's an urgent need to work both inside and outside the party on this and other climate and progressive issues. And the power and leverage that we gain through Democratic Party organizations working together to amplify this issue within the party, at county meetings, city Democratic Party meetings with candidates and party leaders and elected leaders. That's why the council is actively building out our organization across the country. So we're growing the network of democratic environmental groups at the national, state, and local level, also Dems abroad, and then building the connective tissue between them, among them, so they're working together. Strengthening Democratic Party environmental organizing and outreach to the grassroots, the grass tops, and intersectional demographics for whom climate and environmental justice are really key issues. So the DNC Council is not just for DNC members. You can sign up at dncclimate.org and get engaged with our calls to action, our rallies, and our town halls, and committee opportunities, because we are Democrats, but that's a lot more exciting, I promise, than it sounds. So I'm really glad to be here. It's an honor, and I don't know if there are any questions.
Well, unfortunately, we're running tight on time, but otherwise we definitely would. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Greatly appreciate it, and I hope you have a great evening, and I can't wait to see you bright and early tomorrow with the dinosaur.
It's going to be fun. Please sign up, dncclimate.org. Good night.
Awesome. Thank you. And while we're right before I introduce our next guest, we have a couple of brand new Our Revolution Movement Builder members. We have Sudhya and Laura. Thank you so much for joining. And folks, if you can make a contribution, you can join. There's a link in the chat. As soon as you get a chance, we'd greatly appreciate it with anything that you can afford. Those tools that we are able to afford really do make a difference and help us win elections and move on issues like ending fossil fuel subsidies. So next, I'm excited to introduce our next guest, Amy Vilela. So Amy's life was turned upside down when her daughter died after being turned away from a hospital because she couldn't provide proof of insurance. And so Amy became a fighter for Medicare for All and other progressive policies and ran for Congress in 2018. And her campaign was featured in Knock Down the House. So welcome, Amy. Thank you for joining us. And Amy, we know you're running for Congress next year, but since Our Revolution has not started its 2022 endorsement process just yet, so we're not going to talk about the campaign. But for those of you who might not know about you and about your race in 2018, can you tell us about yourself? We saw on Twitter today that today's a terrible anniversary for you and your family, and a reminder of how broken our healthcare system is.
Yes, hello. It's so good to be here tonight. Very excited to be with fellow activists, especially on today. Today is the 6-year anniversary of Shalene's death because of our barbaric healthcare system that we have right now. That's driven really just by profit. Shalene was just a 22-year-old student, whole life ahead of her. She was coming home to Las Vegas to complete her schooling to become an RN. She was super excited to be back home and ready to start on with her life. Unfortunately, when she arrived, she had every symptom and risk factor essentially of a blood clot. When she went to a local ER, they told Shalene when she couldn't provide proof of insurance that she could leave now. It's going to be really expensive. When she pressed further, asking for pain medication for the 8 out of 10 pain and some more testing, they told her to go get insurance and see a specialist, that they weren't a doctor's office. How to do what no person should have to do, no parent, no loved one, and that's hold someone as they die a needless, painful death. And the last thing I told Shalene before she died was, you will not have died in vain. And I didn't know where that was going to take me at that moment, but this was in 2015, just a few months after Bernie Sanders announced his run for office. And I decided to go back and throw the first healthcare rally. Didn't really know what I was doing at that point, but it was very successful. It was the first Medicare for All healthcare rally in Nevada. No one was hardly talking about that. Progressive movement was just in the beginning stages in Nevada. And we kept on organizing. After my run in 2018, I continued helping other progressives to get into office, like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. And I was also Nevada's co-chair for Bernie Sanders. I also helped him lead the efforts for his landslide victory in Nevada. We continued to organize after the primary. And I also helped lead the charge with the progressive slate takeover of the Nevada State Party. So we have seen a tremendous move in Nevada, and it really comes from us continuing to move and organize, not only organize within our current progressive base, but reaching out to members of the community that aren't typically reached out to by the Democratic Party. There's people who are in our frontline communities and the organizers that are on the ground and for these frontline communities. So organizing is so incredibly critical. It's definitely going to have an impact going forward in Nevada. And as you mentioned, I am running, so all eyes are on this race right now to see what else is going to happen in Nevada. And it's a really critical time for us, for politics in Nevada, also for our campaign. So we're really excited about where we're at and how far we've come to this point.
Yes, it is. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the energy is like since progressives are taking over in Nevada, and what it's been like for you and your team and in the state in general? We've heard lots of stories, so we'd love to get your take on it.
Well, it's been extremely exciting. We weren't very surprised at the response. They've come out pretty hard. I think that they were surprised. But again, we just kept, reaching out to the community and never stopped organizing. When we talk about the progressive policies, when we talk about progressive politics, really, these are life and death decisions that we make when it comes to these politics. And we have to be out there constantly organizing and talking about that within the community. My team is super excited. We're seeing a lot of support. We know that we're going to be able to take this from Nevada all the way to Washington, D.C. And so we're super excited about that. And if anybody wants to take a look at it, you can go to amy.vegas/OR. We are definitely making an impact. We are seeing a huge increase of support and really closing that enthusiasm gap that exists right now, especially in my district. It's the largest Democratic district in the state, and it has the ratio, it has the lowest voter turnout. So we're definitely excited to continue this organizing and have another win in Nevada.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for joining us tonight. We are running short on time today. So thank you again. And thank you for sharing your amazing story, your touching story. And it really does highlight, what is wrong with our system and why we need to continue to fight for better healthcare. And so thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm going to kick it over to Mike.
Thanks, Marissa. And we just have about 90 seconds left in tonight's call, and just want to give a shout out to everybody on this call tonight, everybody who joins us every Monday night. There are some calls that just move you, move your heart, move your brain, just get you going. And I think every speaker tonight, this is what we do. This is why we show up Monday nights. This is why we keep on organizing. Sometimes when things look really bad, the progressive movement comes together, supports each other's, and figures a way out. So just an amazing call tonight. Going to make one last membership push that please become a member of our revolution. If you have not become a monthly donor, monthly member, please become one. This is how we build a grassroots movement. We're fully funded by the grassroots. 99.9% of our budget comes from small donors. And that's why it's so important that even if you just got a few bucks, a little bit more than that, as my grandma used to say, a couple nickels, become a member of our revolution, because this is how we build a movement and expand and grow and do what we did in Nevada, what the progressive movement's done in Nevada and New York, what our folks have done in Michigan. We can make a huge difference all across the country. So please become a member of our revolution. We make this pitch a couple times every call, but it's important that we all become members of our rev and keep on organizing. Coming up this week, we have just a couple quick calls. So if you're in the DC area, I just heard a rumor that this dinosaur, those smokestacks, unfortunately, are live. They're going to be smoke coming out of that dinosaur tomorrow. This is going to be a can't miss event with 4 members of Congress, including Ilhan Omar. This is going to be a place, if you're in the DC Metro, you want to show up for, get there early, bring some water. We're going to have water, snacks, donuts, but be there tomorrow if you're in the area. Next slide. Let's keep on rolling. And so then just rest of this week, want to focus on a couple upcoming calls tomorrow night. Want to make sure that people are, sorry, I screwed up there for a second. Phone bank, join the phone bank for tomorrow. We're going to be phone banking our members, asking them to call their members of Congress and ask them to support ending the fossil fuels subsidy. So we'll be acting in DC and we'll be phone banking tomorrow all day to make sure Congress hears loud and clear from our revolution members that it's time to end fossil fuel subsidies. And then next slide. Tomorrow night, if you're in Massachusetts, you probably know the story well. There is a group of nurses in strike in Worcester, Mass. Longest strike, second longest strike in state history going on right now. The hospital, a religious-based, Catholic-based hospital, is bringing in strike breakers to try and break the strike. Tomorrow night, teaming up with a lot of orgs to broadcast the story of what's going on in Worcester at this hospital. Second longest strike in state history. That's tomorrow night on Facebook and across social media. And then on Wednesday night, we're going to go up to Oregon, where my friend Emma Darden, our organizer there, 115 degrees in Oregon today. We're going to be, we're going to be talking about education, but we're probably going to be talking about climate change too, Wednesday night in Oregon. So that's going to conclude our call tonight. Thank you so much for being with us and joining. If you're on a live mic, please unmute yourself, because tonight you heard loud and clear, when we organize, we win. And when we wrap up our calls, that's what we do. Shout it out a little bit. So I'll get it started. When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
We'll see you tomorrow in DC or online. Talk to you soon.